Head straight.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 25th, 2025 Planning Board meeting. I'd like to start with the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the Republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Just a few beginning announcements. The emergency exits for your information are to your left and right out of this room. Restrooms are out the back and to the left. Please be sure to sign the attendance sheet at the back of the meeting room on the table, even if you're a developer and are presenting an application. There are business cards back at the table next to the sign-in sheet if you'd like to take any with you for email addresses and phone numbers for the planning department. Also on the back table are copies of resolutions that we will read tonight, along with the agenda. Please silence your cell phones so that you don't interrupt those who are presenting to the board. And please take all conversations you may wish to have out into the hallway. Close the doors behind you so that you don't interrupt the meeting. Thanks. First item on the agenda of preliminary information is approval of meeting minutes, February 25th. Al, you were absent, so since we only have a quorum here, we're going to have to hold off approving that until the next meeting. Correspondence received. Scott Harder did send something in today, I believe, regarding Chick-fil-A, so that will be discussed as well this evening. Board and committee updates. Dave Condon, Town Board, any updates?
No updates.
Okay. Must have been a quiet night at the board.
Meeting last night.
Keith Maynard, Planning Board update.
Good evening, Keith Maynard, Project Manager for the Town of Victor. The next Planning Board meeting is Tuesday, April 8th at 7 p.m. First item on the agenda is the PMD South Building Addition. It's 727 Raleigh Road. Applicant is requesting approval to construct a 19,870 square foot addition on the south side of their existing building.
19,000.
19,000, yeah.
Sounds big.
On the building that they just put in, they're doing, yeah. Business is good. Bell Miners subdivision at 364 Fishers Road. Applicant is requesting approval to subdivide a 6.395 acre parcel into two lots. Lot 1 consists of the existing house on 3.233 acres, and Lot 2 is proposing to construct a new single-family home on that 3.162 acre lot. Third item on the agenda is the Gardner Pole Barn at 7140 Lane Road. Applicant is requesting approval to amend their current building permit from a 780 square foot pole barn to an 1,140 square foot pole barn, which will kick it over the 1,000 square foot threshold so that it has to go here. And then item number 4 on the agenda is EV chargers at High Point, 207 High Point Drive, which is building 100 up on top. Applicant is requesting approval to install 7 dual port electric vehicle charging stations to accommodate 14 vehicles. Any questions? And plus any carryovers.
Thanks, Keith.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Okay, we have a bunch of items that were originally scheduled on the agenda, 3 of which will not be reviewed this evening. Items 2, 3, and 4, Nickloff Subdivision, Timberview Estates, and Element by Weston at Eastview Mall have all been removed until at least April 22nd. With regard to Element, that was till the 8th. So, the 2 remaining, first one up is public hearing, the Guilfoyle Minor Subdivision. On Strong Road, the applicant is requesting approval to create 2 lots from an existing 86.2 acre space. Lot 1 will consist of 27.15 acres. Lot 2 will consist of 56.735 acres. And Lot 3 will have 2.274 acres of land conveyed to the existing lot and house. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Eric Schaff. With me is Mike Yakuza. We're from Marathon Engineering, and we're representing the various landowners. Bob and Sue Guilfoyle, Mike and Doreen Benshoff, and Bob Taylor. This I have the pleasure of doing because this is a relatively straightforward and simple project.
That before.
Can't say they're all like this. What we have, and hopefully I can do this in less than 5 minutes. No, not saying anything on your item number 2. We have a large lot. It exists right now. It is bifurcated by Strong Road. What we're doing here, as described in the resolution, 150 feet of additional land are being transferred to this existing lot. And then we're saying this on one side of Strong Road is its own lot. This on the other side of Strong Road is its own lot. No site improvements are being proposed at this time. The applicants acknowledge that should any development occur in the future, they have to come in with site plan and all of those various approvals. All we're asking tonight is permission to create the 3 lots as described. Are there any questions?
That is pretty straightforward. As I said, this is a public hearing, so at first we'll start with the board members. Al, questions?
No questions.
Okay, Ernie?
No, seems straightforward to me.
I did have one question, and it actually presents itself on the board. There's a horse barn or adjacent
Yes.
to the house that's on the corner. Is that going to be on its own lot? And if so, are the animals being cared for by local residents or
The
on the-
animals right now are being cared for by an adjacent landowner. Nothing that we're doing here will impact any of those arrangements.
Okay. Bigger
In
concern
terms of
from,
whether it's going to be on its own lot, that answer, we're creating just those 3 large two large lots and transferring some land to the homeowner in the upper northeast corner.
but the lot itself on the, you're surrounded by red on there. That's where the barn is in the upper right corner.
Yes, but it's one huge lot.
Yes.
And so the barn is encompassed within that lot, but that's going to be a 27-plus acre
Yeah,
lot.
it wasn't the size I was worried about, more that it's not part of a lot with a house on it or a residence that someone would be maintaining, caring for the animals. Assuming that it's the house, the owners of the house at the northeast corner of that lot, those people will be, do they lease the property? Do they,
I will let the
Perfect.
homeowner or landowner speak to that as the expert.
just trying to make sure we're all on the same page as to what's happening.
Hello, I'm Robert Guilfoyle. I own the 80-acre parcel on Dryer Road that adjoins this property. And the Baldwins have been using that barn since the early 1970s.
Sure.
And Sharon's husband passed, so she still lives in a house, and she's maintaining a smaller and smaller group of animals. I think she's down to 1 donkey and 4 sheep. Okay?
Yeah.
But I have nothing to do with it. We're just kind enough to let her use the barn and a portion of the property for pasture.
Yeah, my main concern was not that they were or were not, it's that there are people that are taking care of the animals that are right there.
Yes.
If something happens.
Yes, she's right there.
Yeah, so in the future, if she decides to divest of all the animals and move away or whatever, that, how to put this, that someone wouldn't buy the lot and then just keep animals there without being near the property.
Yes.
That's my concern about it,
It's
is,
my thought that at that point, the barn would be taken down.
okay.
It's in very bad shape.
Would you have a problem with a provision I might propose that would suggest that if the owner of, or the user of the barn, keeper of the animals, no longer lived adjacent to that property, that you could no longer keep animals unless someone built a residence there or reestablished that. Does that make sense?
I think that would be fair if the rest of my family
Yeah.
agrees to that.
I couldn't imagine
Yeah.
someone living cross town and keeping animals there without being
no.
right next door. That's my point.
No, that we would not allow that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
Any
Appreciate
other
it.
questions?
Not for me.
Thank you.
As a side note, that barn is historical, so you might want to contact
It
the
is.
town historian.
Do I need a permit to take that
Take
barn
it down, perhaps.
I didn't see
I
a
don't know the
picture of
level.
barn on the wall here now.
I don't know the level of historic, but I can let you know. I can email you tomorrow,
That would
but
be
just as
awesome.
a thought in the back of your head.
Heads up.
Okay.
Yeah. I
Thank
mean,
you
we
very
understand you're
much.
not proposing anything with the barn right now, but
No,
that would be
not
something to
today.
keep in mind in the future.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Those are all the questions I had. Unless you have any other comments, I'll open it up for the public. If
We'd
anyone
be
has any
open
questions,
to
it's
whatever
here.
language is necessary to, maintain that quote-unquote pre-existing non-conforming condition with the barn.
Mm-hmm.
We did receive some minor comments. We did send in a response letter addressing and agreeing to all of those, and this map has already been revised containing those, the comments that were requested. So
Okay,
we have nothing further to add at this point.
all right. Wes, was there anything from you or LaBella?
Just for the record, we did issue a letter dated March 19th, 2025 for this project, and the updated plan that the applicant's representative have submitted today addresses all of our comments. We simply had some minor technical things for the plan to reflect, which it now does, so we're all set.
Okay, thanks, Wes.
Yep.
So I guess I'll repeat that. If anyone would like to have questions for the developer, come on right up. Don't be shy. If not, I'll close the public hearing. Seeing none, entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Al moves.
Second.
Ernie seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, public hearing is closed. Hearing nothing further, we do have a draft resolution for your application, which I will read. So for the Guilfoyle Minor subdivision, Strong Road and Dryer Road, application 2MS 2025, whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact, and there are 7 of them. Whereas the Town of Victor Planning Board reviewed the unlisted action on March 25th, 2025, and identified no significant impacts, now therefore be it resolved that the project Guilfoyle Minor subdivision will not have a significant impact on the environment, and that a negative declaration be prepared, and be it further resolved that the application of Richard L. Guilfoyle Irrevocable Trust and Doreen G. Benshop Revocable Living Trust and Michael J. Benshop Revocable Living Trust, minor subdivision entitled Guilfoyle Minor Subdivision, drawn by Marathon Engineers, dated February 13th, 2025, received by the Planning Board February 18th, 2025, last revised March 19th, 2025, Planning Board application 2MS 2025, be approved with the following conditions. There are 2 sets, conditions that must be met prior to the chairman signing the minor subdivision plan. Numbers 1 and 2 and 3 are standard. Number 4, that comments in a letter dated March 19th from Labella Associates be addressed, which they may already have been. Number 5, that comments from Code Enforcement Officer dated March 25th, 2025 be addressed. And the conditions that are ongoing standard conditions that must be adhered to. Number 1 is standard. Number 2, also standard. Number 3, that section 211.3B, general regulations for land use, non-conforming use of the Code of the Town of Victor, shall apply to the pre-existing non-conforming barn, accessory structures, and fence located on Lot 1. And I believe this addresses my comment regarding care for animals on an unoccupied lot with the barn or an accessory structure. Number 4, the applicant shall be aware that conditional approval of this subdivision does not mean that lots 1 and 2 are approved building lots. Site plan approval is required prior to lots 1 and 2 becoming buildable lots and before a building permit can be issued. And be it further resolved that the planning board secretary distribute the planning board's approval letter. So with that reading, do I hear a motion for approval?
Move.
Ernie moves. Al seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried 3-0. So, that's approved. Second and final item this evening is a formal site plan application from Chick-fil-A Restaurant, 100-1020 Eastview Mall Drive. The owner is Eastview Mall LLC. Applicants requesting approval to construct a 5,331 square foot quick-serve restaurant with a double-lane drive-through and outdoor patio. This project is proposed on a 1.96 acre portion of land on the Eastview Mall parcel at the southeast corner. And we've seen this informally a couple of times within the last few months. So, good evening.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Charlie Gottlieb from the law firm of Whiteman, Osterman, and Hanna in Albany, New York. We're land use counsel for Chick-fil-A all across the state. I'm here this evening with Randy Bebout from Bowler Engineering, who's our project engineer, as well as Christine Bianchi from T.Y. Lin International, our project traffic engineer. We're here this evening for an approximately 5,331 square foot Chick-fil-A restaurant with a dual lane drive-through. As the chairman mentioned, it's on the Eastview Mall project site, and one of its main goals is to make sure that the Eastview Mall stays revived and constantly has a driving force for attractions. One thing I'll mention that Randy will get into, as you see on the site plans, is Chick-fil-A has developed a very unique drive-through process, which is designed to handle the demand that they've been seeing throughout the country and certainly throughout the state. So one thing you'll notice there is that it's a dual lane drive-through with the dual lanes going completely throughout the area of the drive-through. They never merge into one lane. Team members take their orders from the ordering canopy at the lower part of the screen that you see there. They take those orders on tablets. Oh,
Sorry, I'm just saying you have a.
usually I leave that up to the engineers, but now I feel lucky. So they'll take the orders right there on tablets. Cars will continuously move through, and then team members actually deliver the food through a door. There's no pickup window to both cars in the respective lanes, and that has really increased drive-through efficiency. We have received some comments from most of the planning board consultants. I believe some are outstanding. We also have county comments, all of which we will be responding to. Here this evening to go through the project, obtain comments from this board, which will kind of add to the list of responses that we will provide. We'd also like to confirm next steps with the project this evening. I think we have met informally with the planning board a few times. We would hope that the planning board would commence the secret process, whether that's a coordinated or uncoordinated review. We can certainly discuss that. The project also requires some area variances, which I'll get into in a little while. So we were also hoping for a referral to the town zoning board of appeals. We submitted in February a long-form environmental assessment form, a traffic impact study and addendums, a drainage and erosion control report, an engineering report for sanitary and water, a sign survey, which demonstrates all proposed signage on the project site, building elevations, which I understand are responsive to architectural comments that we have received to date, and of course, site plans. The project is a permitted use with planning board approval. One thing that the planning board may discuss this evening is there is a hotel project going on this same project site. They're a little bit more advanced in the review process than we are, but we have taken into consideration that hotel project so that all cumulative environmental impacts have been assessed. The project site is also within a restricted area, the limits of disturbance is within a restricted area on the project site. This planning board has amended that restrictive covenant that lies on the property twice before. We would be asking for the planning board and the town board to do that in this instance as well. This will be an approximately $2 million investment by Chick-fil-A into the town of Victor. It will employ roughly 100 to 125 team members with 60 to 80 temporary construction jobs. The facility will be open Monday through Saturday, 6:30 a.m. to 10 p.m. We did receive a memo, a detailed memo from the code enforcement officer related to the variances that we will be required. One of the items that the code enforcement officer requested was instead of a site plan applying the area and bulk regulations just within our limits of disturbance, an overall site plan for the entire mall site, and that will be provided. A few of the area variants that the code enforcement officer indicated, one was related to green space. And I just wanted to make note of this. We are required 35% green space on the entire project, the entire mall site. Of course, with the Chick-fil-A, we would not have that green space. But in conjunction with the hotel project, the entire site will be compliant with that 35% requirement. Rightfully, the code enforcement officer has requested we go and seek a variance regardless, because until the hotel project is built, there's no affirmances that the town has that the 35% would be met, but that is the property owner's intent. There are also setbacks required for the delivery canopy, which is in the rear of the building, but on the front yard of the project site. The ordering canopy, the delivery canopy, as you see there, is a very thin canopy that is attached to the building. Those are crucial to that dual lane efficient drive-through process that I mentioned earlier, because during times of inclement weather, whether it be rain or snow or sun, the team members are protected from the elements and are able to deliver food efficiently. We'll also be seeking an area variance for a retaining wall and a fence above the retaining wall, which is also within that front yard setback area. And in the location of the retaining wall, there are some easements, kind of historical easements on the property that require an area variance from the zoning board, but we'll be relocating those easements and eliminating those as the project gets developed. We'll also require certain sign variances from the town's sign regulations. This area of the mall site is on a corner lot, essentially. So you have a trafficked road going on essentially all three sides, including the internal access drives. So what Chick-fil-A has learned over the years is that signage is vitally important to, one, controlling internal traffic flow so that people are not confused and can see the project location, both from the more heavily trafficked roadway, but also internal to the mall site itself. So again, I'll hand it over to Randy to walk you through the site plans itself. But this evening, we'd appreciate your comments, a referral to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and also to commence the secret process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening. Randy Bebout with Bowler Engineering. So we've submitted a full set of site plan drawings. Since the last submission that we made informally, the site plan has not changed. Really, everything is, for all intents and purposes, identical to the last informal submission that we made. Just obviously added details of a bunch more notes and references to the plans. The grading plan is essentially the same as last time. There was some modifications maybe to the elevations above the wall, but we still need to kind of fine tune that area. We've provided the utility plan, which depicts the proposed utilities for the facility. We'll be relocating a water main as part of this that ends up sort of underneath where the proposed wall is, and new water service and sewer service. The water service will actually go to the north, sewer service will come to the south and tie into the existing sewer line underneath that's on the south side of the southern mall access drive. Landscaping plan is the same plan, remains unchanged from what we previously had submitted as we work through that through the informal review process. Just reminding the board that we went through, we had added additional plantings, we had updated the caliper size of the trees, and then we ended up proposing to leave just a handful of existing trees. Provided a detailed site lighting plan with the photometrics, and then all the applicable details. We did get a bunch of comments from the town construction inspector on the details, so we'll work through those items. But generally, that's the overview of the drawings, and I can answer any questions the board may have in regards to the site layout or other elements of the design.
Okay, thank you. There's a lot to digest with this project. Certainly, you have a lot of need for variances on a site that has been restricted by, for no build area for reasons in the past, and not the least of which is really it's the main entrance from the south to the mall, and that green space has been pretty important to the community, to the presence of the mall. All of that is, it's almost a buffer, but it's a green buffer that allows for a less commercial look to it. The mall's done a good job updating the facades, adding new restaurants and new businesses. So, we've worked pretty closely with the mall over the years, I think, to develop this site. Regarding the green space question, I think it's the board's opinion, I'll let everyone else weigh in as well, that the two projects really should be divorced from each other.
That's correct, and that's...
And you made that comment earlier.
Yes.
One of you did,
Yeah,
sorry.
the green space, we're going to stand on our own. We did incorporate the trip generations from that project into the traffic study, into the amendment, so that was included, so that we're sort of looking at that holistically. But yes, we are proceeding as if we're on our own.
So the big thing is, taking away that section of green space, it's not just the percentage of green space that's remaining, it's the view shed contribution, I think, that is pretty important to the town. You can do a lot with landscaping and plantings, but the fact is, no build of any structure over 4 foot high, a retaining wall of over 4 feet is considered a structure. You've got the canopy in the building. Is, my personal opinion, we need to see other alternatives to try to avoid that before the board would be able to grant a variance, or I don't know if you call it a rezoning or redesignation of that space to a non-no build. And at the last couple of meetings, I think I've requested you guys to look at shifting the building or reorienting it so that it can be put in the existing parking area. You could invade that space a bit with parking, but you'd be able to keep all the structures out of that space to live within the spirit of the no-build designation there. So that's one item, the green space, and two, the no-build part.
Yeah, and I guess just, I know at the last informal meeting, you were talking about shifting the ring road.
Yes.
With this mission, we did provide an alternative analysis of shifting the ring road, whether it was shifted up 50 feet or shifted up further into the center of the parking area, and we provided really the justifications of why that is problematic from a traffic standpoint, and we...
Could you go into that a little bit for me? I appreciate that.
Yeah, so
We have our traffic engineer from Labellas here
and we have
also.
Christine here who can assist me. I'll just kind of give you the overview, and if there's any real nuts and bolts details, she can provide that background. But
I mean, before you go into that, one of the comments that Adam made, code enforcement, was that if you have any backup beyond the queuing area within Chick-fil-A. It backs up into the ring road directly. So that could be problematic, especially at high volume times.
Yeah, I mean, we have a really healthy capacity here just to prevent that issue from happening.
Okay,
You know, when we reconfigured the driveways, we went from 4 driveways to 3 driveways. We shifted that intersection or the access point closest to the Ring Road intersection further up. And then additionally, we added some additional stacking lanes internally before you even, quote, technically get into the drive-through. And again, all that is to ensure we have enough capacity to avoid the things that you're
yeah,
concerned about.
okay, so I'll let you proceed with that.
Yeah, so on the analysis, we had looked at, from the sketch that you had provided, was looking at shifting that ring road up, and I'm just gonna use a rough number of 50 to 60 feet. And essentially then you end up with this offset intersection, which is never ideal, because you start looking at those left turn movements, and it's a question of, who's going first and how does that work? If you're gonna offset an intersection, there's usually a minimum distance that you wanna do that. So when you start looking at that minimum distance, it would push that ring road up into the sort of the middle of that southern large parking area. I don't know if we can go to an
Yeah,
area.
Susie, do you have another one that shows the overall area of the mall in plan? I don't know if it's on your setup or not. There you go, well, no, well, let's see, what's
that
that
one
one?
works.
That one's good. So where's 96 and all, it's right here. This is the entrance in the middle. Chick-fil-A has proposed this space right here, correct?
Yep.
And I think we talked about either running this road right to here and teeing into that.
That's correct, and that was the other
Access
thing
road.
that we looked at, is if this ring road gets shifted to here, we end up creating an additional 3-way intersection. And we just, again, the idea of creating additional intersections
Well,
to us is not desirable.
Okay, well, you'd be eliminating a 4-way in favor of a 3-way here and a 3-way there, correct?
Yes.
So if that, what you're saying is that's the extra
Yeah.
3-way? Okay,
But I mean, that's one piece of it. The parking loss is another piece, and how that impacts, what parking is available and other restrictions that they have with their tenants.
and that's something that I think you'd need to talk to Wilmer and work with them about seeing how you could adjust, because Macy's is only part of this whole parking area in front of Raymore and Flanagan and Goodwill. Yeah, thank you, Al. So, I mean, you could shift that line over a couple rows and you pick up all of this loss that they would lose in this area. I'm thinking out of the box a little bit here, at least on the fly. If you put the building over here and eliminated this, you'd be able to get more queuing up to this intersection, which is already problematic. So if you could queue that up more without having to stop here, then that might actually help. The other thing is, if you get the exiting traffic from Chick-fil-A, no matter where it is, to go up this entrance in the middle, rather than diverting them over down to here again, you'd avoid this left turn problem from all of the traffic out of Chick-fil-A and push them up this way.
I mean, they can do that now with the proposed
They
layout.
can, but they aren't as likely. I mean, we all know what happens when you force no left turn.
Well-
They go left turn anyway. So, and that's
Yeah,
what
I'm just saying
happens.
the drive-through exit is close to that intersection as it
It
is
is.
to the other one.
Yeah. So I'm giving you
Yep.
items to think about. So, okay, go ahead.
But yes, I mean, that's really the gist of it, is we wouldn't want an offset intersection here, which is, I would say, obviously a less of an impact to parking if we're moving that 60 feet up, where, if you were talking about bringing that ring road in here, it has again, we're creating another intersection, and it has a much bigger impact to parking.
I mean, honestly, if you did that, all of this ring road right here becomes available space for parking, and you could massage this no-build area by putting some parking in here perhaps, still saving 90% probably, or even 80% of this green space with landscaping by, allowing for some parking on this side. Maybe you don't shift the whole building over here, but you still have this drive-through, and then the exit comes over to this point here, and then people can get out. My dilemma is what exactly you're causing is a need to redesignate a space that was clearly important to the town in the past, and we're trying to look for ways to not do that, so to honor that perspective.
Understood.
So those are my immediate comments, and I guess, Al?
Well, start with the positives. I think the board is very supportive of Chick-fil-A coming to the town of Victor and being in the mall area. So we start with that. From a architectural perspective, I think the building is enhanced greatly from our initial view, so I think that's a very positive development. I think we've been very consistent in our hesitancy around invading that green space at all. And subsequent to our preliminary discussions, I mean, at least to me, I've now become aware of the restrictive covenant. It actually states, declarant agrees that it shall not seek permission or approval from the town for the purposes of constructing anything. So to me, this becomes a much more challenging modification than even we were initially. So to the extent, again, that we can move into the existing parking area and maximize that and minimize the disruption of the green space, I think, we could have a winning formula. And everything else is, to me, is subsequent to basically the no-build covenant.
The other requests, some of them go away, proximity, if you move the building away from the setbacks and things like that, so.
The need for the variances
Yeah.
and whatnot, I think, become minimal if you're completely eliminated. And again, I know Chick-fil-A appears to feel very strongly that, curb appeal, visibility of drive-by traffic, but I'm not so convinced. I mean, I think with today's phone apps that you can find, a needle in a haystack. All you got to do is hit your app and it'll take you right to the drive-through, no matter where it is. Even if it was covered in straw, customers would find it. So I just feel like it's not that important to be right there on the corner and invade that green space.
I mean, honestly, as soon as you get into the mall space, you see it coming down the drive, and you'll see it driving along 96 from up above. So the visibility's there. I would agree with that. Anything else, Al?
I think those are my main
Okay.
concerns.
Ernie, Quants, you might want to step up to your mic a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just, Scott sent this.
Oh, okay.
Read it.
Yeah,
I hope he doesn't
sure.
mind.
No, I
He
think
would
that
have
was
said
the-
that if he were here.
That was the intent, yeah.
This is from Scott Harder, who was one of our members who was not able to be here tonight. He says, although I can't make the meeting tonight, for input to the planning board members who do attend, I want to express my opposition to the currently proposed location, underlined location, of the Chick-fil-A Out Parcel Restaurant. I'm certainly not opposed to the restaurant coming to Eastview Mall. However, I am opposed to this location when so many other locations exist on this property that would not consume this prime open space. This landscaped open space area complements the area near Valentine Corners by offering something more than adding to the surrounding concrete, rooftops, and asphalt. I understand that the restaurant and developer want visibility from the highway, but the planning knowledge that I have gained going all the way back to the Growth Management Committee days in the 90s, plus continuous attendance at planning/zoning seminars as required as a board member, tell me loudly not to sacrifice this limited resource, especially when other locations alternatives exist. And he says, please share this correspondence with the planning board for consideration during tonight's meeting. And I think that says it all as far as anybody who just doesn't like this location. And I'm among those.
You don't have to be hesitant about that. So, anything else, Ernie, that
No.
got at you? I mean, this seems to be the key issue is we can't do anything without making the amendment or the change, and we can't really make the change, in my opinion, until you've exhausted other opportunities. So,
So we hear you loud and clear. Just a few things to note. And I'm going to invite Eric Wright up to speak with Wilma Wright, the property owner, to talk about the feasibility of that and also the importance of economic development in this area. One is I heard a comment about worry about backing up drive-throughs into the ring road. I'm not sure if this board is familiar with Chick-fil-A's grand opening plans, and if anyone's informed you about that.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, I think we got an overview of, again, where, seasoned staff come in and help facilitate and really handhold the training and the opening to make sure it goes, flawlessly. And
Right, okay,
I
good.
think that's a great plan.
Yeah, and maybe for the benefit of the public, I'm glad they could hear that. Another item to note is that declaration, that restrictive covenant. I did see that part where it said the applicant shall not seek approval from the planning board, but in other provisions in that covenant, it says we have to go to the planning board and then the town board for approval. So it's a little contradictory, which certainly weighs in favor of the applicant there. Another thing to note is, and I will respond to this, certainly this area has changed. This is now a commercial corridor of the town of Victor. There is a green space assessment that I believe was shared during informal meetings that we'll present again that shows the green space of other commercial developments on this corridor, which would be consistent, which our project would be consistent with. So, we inch towards not allowing this green space to be effective, but in actuality, when the character of the community is a heavily commercial corridor with appropriate frontages. So that said, we will look at, alternatives and feasibility. And at this point, I'd like Mr. Wright to come up to speak a little bit about that feasibility and the importance of the project.
Okay, great, thank you. More voices, the better.
Thank you. Eric Wright with Wilmer Wright, Vice President Construction. As the other members of the team have said, I think, and we've mentioned previously in meetings, what's so important about what we're proposing here is continuing to reinvent the mall and make sure that the mall stays an important part of the community and a vibrant part of the community, and that we don't get lost because we didn't keep up with kind of the demands of the commercial environment. I wish it was 30 years ago and we could tell Chick-fil-A you're going in next to Tom Walls in the middle of the food court, and they'd say yes and everyone would be happy. But unfortunately, that's not the case anymore. I think Victor is really wants to have Chick-fil-A here and thinks it's important. We really think it's important that the mall continues to bring tenants like that. And I think, as John Dower said, our VP of leasing at one of the meetings, having tenants like Chick-fil-A and those names continue to draw other tenants, whether it's in line in the mall or elsewhere. And so for us, being able to keep bringing those types of important tenants is how we keep this property vibrant. And going back to the parking and traffic piece, I'm less concerned about losing the parking by shifting the parcel into kind of the center of that parking area, but I am concerned about those three intersections, and you got turns basically going into each other in three different directions that I think both traffic engineers here would say is not really ideal. So happy to answer questions about why this is important to the mall.
So I would say not a question. Again, no debate around, right, wanting to see the economic viability continue for the mall property.
Yeah.
No debate that. Again, Chick-fil-A coming. It's a 90-plus acre parcel. And it just seems like that there's got to be a better solution than taking the one green space that, basically has a covenant that says no build. 90-acre parcel. And if it's not this corner, it's 90 acres. I mean, we have a hotel going up in the rear potentially, right? They seem to be perfectly fine with the location of that. So I just don't think we've exhausted on a 90-acre parcel. This is the only place on the planet that Chick-fil-A can be successful. It's my opinion.
Yeah, I think that is accurate, that's the only place they'd be comfortable going is in this corner. And it's not that it's solely that corner, it's the topography and the grades around the site. I mean, there's not a lot of other pad locations that fit their criteria.
It's a flat parking lot.
Yeah, the parking lot we explored doesn't work for the traffic reasons, not necessarily.
Again, there's plenty of other areas in the parking lot. I mean, there's a lot of parking out there.
Yeah, Zach's not here from Chick-fil-A, but I think he would tell you that those don't work for what Chick-fil-A needs as a
Okay.
company. So,
Understood.
yep.
Les, any comments?
Yeah, so I didn't have a chance to chime in here yet. So number one, Labella, we did get a couple of comment letters out on this project, but we didn't get all of them out. So number one, you do have architecture comments and you do have traffic comments. We did not get our planning and engineering comments out. Labella has experienced a network IT outage. So we do have comments that would be forthcoming on this application, a few of which I could talk with you about tonight. I don't think any of them need to be resolved tonight. The first comment is about that fundamental issue that the planning board needs to decide as to whether to allow for alteration of this no-build area, right? And do the characteristics of a quick-serve restaurant, do they suit this particular area? Or would that, if the planning board did want to decide to modify that no-build area, are there other characteristics from other allowable uses that might be preferable? I'm not sure. So that's I think the fundamental issue that needs to be decided upon, which we've heard an abundance of tonight. We would like to get some additional details on certain aspects of the application. So we did review the lighting plan. We'd like to get some catalog cut sheets for the exterior light fixtures that would be a part of this project. I suspect that most of them, if not all of them, are going to be dark sky compliant or full cutoff light fixtures. I also wanted to talk about there's a flag proposed and an illumination of that flag. The code does allow for those uplights, uplight beam to illuminate the flag after hours or after sunset. The code also does prefer either, maybe a downlight, having a light on top of the flagpole so as to preserve the dark sky. We try to control the sky glow here in the town of Victor. And so those are just a couple of minor details on lighting. So for the tree, for example, this particular site, if it were to be modified, you've got a total of 3 trees that would be preserved in the limit of disturbance area. And we'd like to see that a tree protection detail be provided for those 3 trees and surrounding those 3 trees, just so that they're not accidentally taken out. I think the other 23 trees would be removed. And there's also 1 tree up by the Eastview Mall sign near the Route 96 frontage that's outside of the limit of disturbance that is to remain. I think we'd also want to see a tree protection detail around that tree as well. Some technical comments that we'll get into in the letter to be addressed on the grading plan, utility plan. And then certainly I did want to provide an opportunity for my colleague Lorenzo to speak on his evaluation of traffic. So I don't think I have anything further right at this point, but.
Quick question, Eric, I think you said you're not so concerned about the parking, was the statement you just made? Loss of parking, or is that, I don't want to make sure I understand what that comment means.
When you said shifting
the building?
The reason we're not proposing that, it's not because we're losing parking. So I wouldn't say that's a driving factor for not shifting the building, because I agree
Okay,
there is a
so
way
you're-
to slightly increase parking in other areas to try and make up for that. I will say if you put parking kind of where you suggested it in this area,
Yeah.
you're sort of creating parking that is as far away from the retail portion as possible. So though you're supplementing it, I don't know that it's.
Well, I was presuming that parking would all be contributing to the Chick-fil-A building. And that would be assuming that you're not going to bisect between the building and the parking in that area with the ring road. You'd have to move the ring road. So is there a way to relocate that 4-way intersection, for instance, within the Goodwill site? Could you move it closer to Macy's, for instance, internally? This is something Wilmerite would have to do, clearly, because it's your property that you have control over. You still maintain a four-way intersection, but you could still move that building away from this no-build area and sweep closer to the middle, perhaps. Maybe you had the exit, instead of having this exit here from Raymore and Flanagan come out this way, have it come straight across to a 4-way right there. And you'd still maintain the 4-way, eliminate this one, and then the Chick-fil-A could be here with some parking in this vicinity.
I don't really see how that would work with having this ring road here turn up and then make a
Well,
sharp turn back.
I was thinking that all this parking, this island here, you'd end up with an entrance here. I think you do need some access towards the drop-off for Goodwill, right? So,
Yeah, I think I just struggle with seeing how you'd make the kind of U around.
but why? I
the
just
ring
haven't
road.
done it engineering-wise yet, so
Yeah.
I would lay it out to see what you could do with it. That's what I'm talking about in terms of, let's explore all opportunities to help both causes here.
Yeah, we can definitely explore it further.
Yeah. I would love to see that, to just shift it enough to get, okay, maybe this swoops around a little bit more to here on the outside, and then the intersection is here with that road. I mean, you're certainly getting grade, it's not gonna, you're helping this grade, this quick turn and up the grade here rather than, keeping it there. So you could go straight down this aisle and have a four-way and then go right into Raymore and Flanagan, and then have an immediate internal intersection from parking to Goodwill. Thinking outside of what I've been, I'm just shooting on the fly here, but
Yeah, no,
there's ways to look at it and keep your four-way intersection without the offset, if that's as big a concern as it, it sounds like it is to the engineers.
yeah, we can continue to.
I would
Try and
love to
explore
see you
those.
guys work through that and say, yeah, we can do that. Or if it's impossible, I understand, but I don't think it's impossible. This whole area is pretty much on a similar grade. So I believe there's a place to take the Chick-fil-A building from this spot over here to maybe this direction here. You end up with internal parking to Chick-fil-A with circulation that doesn't back yourself up into a ring road. And then you get people coming out of Chick-fil-A, going right into this intersection and getting out of the mall there. And it eliminates a lot of traffic from this activity to this three-way intersection here, which is always a nightmare. In I've seen it, because you got the constant through. You don't have anybody stopping coming into the mall.
Right.
So there's always backup right in this area. So I think there's more work that you can do to try to make this work.
Yeah, respectfully, I think we've done a lot of those and they haven't worked, but we will
I'd love to see what you've done.
try that. Yep.
Yeah, but I would suggest taking some of those thoughts and ideas and seeing what you can do to work it out.
Yep.
So I totally support what Al said about Chick-fil-A in general. I mean, we try to stop on the throughway on Chick-fil-A all the time, As long as we're not traveling on Sunday, we're good. But it's a great restaurant, good people, all of that. And they're very kind. The people at the Henrietta place we go to sometimes are always friendly and helpful. So it's a very good business for the community. We totally support that. So
And so just so I'm hearing it correctly, the charge is to examine alternatives. I hear we want Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is a great operation. Chick-fil-A's, but we don't want it at the same time. And so we will investigate
We want it in the
alternatives.
Well, let's-
no-build zone.
yeah, there is a
property.
no-build zone that's also important to the town.
Understood.
And that we think there's other ways to, I won't say the traditional way to do that, but there's other ways to make this work.
So we will investigate. Now, this is going to be something for Chick-fil-A to consider. To the extent that alternatives are not feasible, either for Chick-fil-A from a traffic perspective or a business perspective, or from the property owner from a traffic or business perspective, or to the town planning board or consultants. It's important to know going forward, if we do our additional due diligence, which we've done, but now we'll do it in the public forum, is the planning board not susceptible to modifying that restrictive covenant, which it's done in the past for other developments, just so that we can get kind of a plain reading of, if everything's not feasible, can it be modified? But we'll certainly do our diligence and go through the effort of, trying to minimize the open space disturbance.
Well, Joe, I'll leave the
Go ahead.
formal response to you, but again, I personally have a hard time believing that the Chick-fil-A business model collapses if it's anywhere else on that property. My personal opinion. So I guess you'd have to bring some very hard facts to substantiate that Chick-fil-A business model can only survive in the no-build zone.
Okay. Ernie, any thoughts on that, or? Okay, how to address this? I think we need a good faith effort with some plan sketches. You don't need all the architecture and all that kind of stuff. We kind of agree on most of the stuff you've come forward with. We've worked it back and forth a little bit. You've been certainly willing to add to the landscaping and modify, the layout of that particular wall, but in the end, I think there are one or two ways to make this work, whether it's two offsets or whether you can redesign, working with the Wilmerite, the circulation in that part of the site. Because it's been done before. I mean, that's what happened with that three-way intersection. There's a retaining wall built, all kinds of stuff to make that intersection work. And this would be not touching or interfering with that wall. And honestly, you're getting pretty close to that wall when you come with your drive-through and that parking to invading whatever soil reinforcement there is in the ground over there. So I'd be a little concerned about that too when going forward. So I think you hear right what we're asking.
So, yeah, absolutely. So, we'll prepare a response to all the technical comments, and we'll look at the alternative sketches, and see what was reviewed in the past with prior alternatives like you were discussing, and, certainly give it a shot.
No build doesn't mean no touch. No build means don't put any structures. And as I said, 4-foot retaining wall is not a structure, but anything higher is. So if, this is my personal opinion, I'm not speaking for the whole board, but if you can show that you can gain some space by using some of that area, I'm not talking a big percentage of it, but, at least an aisle or two of parking, and relocate the ring road while moving the building, basically flipping parking and building, and putting a short wall in there to support the rest of the remaining green space up there with the trees and everything intact, or even some minor modifications. I would be open to that.
Okay.
So I'll leave it at that. But I think I've been pretty consistent about there's got to be another way to do this on that same site without invading most of that green space and that no-build area. So
Oh, that's incredibly helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
So, with that said, unless the board has any other questions, if you want to open it up to public comment or start the secret
we
process.
certainly can. I know, Wes, you want to talk about seeker? I mean, we really can't move this forward with
Yeah.
review until we get, we kind of agree on a layout and get this change.
So far, from my evaluation, I would preliminarily identify this as an unlisted action. So I don't believe that there's a need for a coordinated seeker review. I will re-examine that just to be sure that's the path that we want to take. And as far as, filling out part 2 and 3 of the EAF, I think you as the applicant would want to see the remainder of Labello's comments and to understand maybe the potential impacts. So also, for example, right, if the site plan is going to change, if the location of the development is going to change, we'll certainly steer seeker in that direction the way we need to. But just looking at from the other times that the applicant has been before informally, right? In February 2024, October 2024, November 2024, and December 2024, and now March 2025. Each time the project has been in the same exact location with improvements, right? I do recognize that, but there's been continued resistance every time in terms of the project location. So
The building location.
the building location, right?
I'll just highlight the fact that the project in that general area, I don't think we have too much problem with. It's the fact that we have to invade that no-build space with some sort of structure.
I would agree with that, Joe, but,
Okay.
if, for example, the three-way versus four-way becomes an immovable object, I'm just saying, look somewhere else on the property.
Okay, no, understood.
But ideally, it would be that quadrant would be acceptable from my perspective.
Okay. Anything else, Wes? Sorry.
Not right at this point for
Okay.
seeker.
No, that's helpful. The only reason I thought about commencing the secret process was if this board planned on doing a coordinated review, and then you could obtain comments from the ZBA and other involved agencies. But certainly, if it's uncoordinated, there's not much secret work to do at the moment.
Yeah, and if things change on the site, you're going to drop a bunch of variances probably, making it simpler. So, and the board, if we have to take action about the no-build area, then that has to be done first before we can recommend anything to the zoning board. So, I think that's where we are at the moment.
Certainly, and I think that, you know, the resistance you saw after the informal meetings that you had just mentioned off is quite indicative of the feasibility of moving the building. But again, we will go back to the drawing board for I don't know if it'll be a 5th or 6th time to revisit the issue, and you guys will be getting responsive comments.
Okay. Ernie, anything else?
Nothing tonight.
No? Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that has any questions for the developer? It's going to be remaining an open public hearing. Step up, name, address. If not, okay. Wes just reminded me that Lorenzo Rotoli's here from LaBelle Associates. He's a traffic expert, and we might have that conversation right now. It would be useful since we're here. If you want to present any traffic issues that you think you've resolved already, or if you want to have Lorenzo chime in to answer any of that, now's the
We
time.
invite our traffic engineer, Christine, to just come up and talk about the traffic impact statement generally. And I believe it's the one addendum, and then also might be helpful to understand her investigation of
That
alternative
would be great.
locations.
Yeah, we're all here. It's a good time.
Nice to meet you. I'm Christine Bianchi, and I'm with 2i Lin Engineers, and I did the traffic.
Yeah, either you have to step closer.
I'm very soft-spoken, but I can be loud. So my name is Christine Bianchi, and I'm with 2i Lin. I did the traffic impact study for Chick-fil-A. We did it back in July when the site plan was slightly different than what it is now, that being that it had 4 entrances, and now it has 3. So that is one thing I did want to highlight for you. That being having 4 entrances and exits on the ring road creates a little bit more congestion than we like to see. So the 3 is a good thing. We did run the study through the DOT, and the DOT did accept it. They provided a review of it, and I believe that you have the letter as well.
That was regarding the intersection with 96. and the-
Regarding the intersections on 96.
But nothing internal, right? They wouldn't have
Well, they
commented.
did looked at the entire study.
Okay.
So they did look at how the internal roads would back up potentially onto 96. That's always
Okay.
a thought
Yep.
there for them. That's always a concern, I should
Thanks
say,
for
rather, for
clarifying
them. So the gist of the recommendations that we did make were some modifications along the ring road. The first one being, let's see. I'm not sure how, wait, let's see. Here we go. So this ring road, this piece right here, the left turn lane is rather short. We did recommend an extension of the left lane to pick up traffic coming out of Chick-fil-A, although we believe that a majority of the traffic is going to head out the easiest way possible.
I think in the end, we'll want to encourage traffic to get out that way.
Absolutely, I agree with that,
Yep.
and perhaps some wayfinding signs within the site to help people find their way out too would be great, would be helpful.
Okay.
You want this map, or do you want a different map?
This is fine, as long as everybody can see. And understand where I am. So this, this was where the site plan was for the Chick-fil-A. So another recommendation that we made was for these 2 lanes coming down. Right now, heading southbound, it's a left and a through, and then a through. So we recommended modifying this to a left and then a through, so that it would minimize the conflicts with vehicles at that intersection. All in all, we thought that the traffic, it is quite a bit of traffic. However, you have to remember with a project like this, a lot of the traffic is already on the road coming to Chick-fil-A, or they're already within the confines of the
All site,
parcel
yeah.
as it is. Yes. So as far as trip generation goes, I'm kind of backing up a little bit. As far as trip generation goes for the project, Chick-fil-A has a lot of great numbers, and Chick-fil-A is kind of an anomaly as far as restaurants of this type go. They do a really wonderful lunchtime crowd, so their numbers tend to be higher than your typical restaurants with drive-throughs. And then they also have a high Saturday midday traffic. So we use Chick-fil-A numbers as opposed to the ITE trip generation, and we did provide a comparison of the two in the report as well. Once we were finished with the report, and then we found out about the hotel going up, we did provide an addendum and then added in the background traffic from the hotel and overlaid it on our whole system. And it didn't really affect any of the outcome of what our recommendations were or what the levels of service were.
Would you characterize the hotel traffic as being off-peak from Chick-fil-A?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a good thing.
Yep.
So, so do you have any questions just about the traffic study before I move on a little bit further?
Oh,
No?
go ahead.
Okay. So speaking to the shifting of the parcel, we did look at that and we provided a letter to you with our comments back. And the primary issue that we did have, also, it would eliminate some traffic, some parking spots, but as you can tell, I mean, that's not our overarching issue. The big issue was moving this ring road up here, even if we moved it 2 lanes over. Now you're creating 2 3-way intersections.
So think further north.
Yes,
Trying to push it further north.
we had run it through, like, you didn't see all the things that we've run through in the office, but we did run through some other options, and, one was coming straight through here. And that actually, we really don't want to bring all that traffic close to the mall where people are walking, right? Because we're trying to minimize the pedestrian conflicts and minimize traffic around the front of the mall. We're trying to keep traffic away from that. So that was a bit of a deterrent.
Just a quick comment
Sure.
about that. Right now, I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 T intersections between the 4-way intersection and Macy's, because those T intersections are traffic coming in and out. Yes, it's 1 or 2 cars, not 10 cars,
Yes.
per hour or minute or whatever.
Yes, that's a good point. It is drastically different, but you're right, there are conflicts there, as with most parking lots with, tying into the roads within, those are always conflict points. We looked at primarily for the site plan that we had, that we had responded to about was with the ring road approximately here. And that created not only issues with left turners here and left turners here, but also with the traffic coming straight through here because they don't have to stop. So now you're creating an issue for cars coming out of here and then cars turning with the cars going straight. So you're creating a little bit more of an issue than what you have now. Now, I like your idea of a 4-way, moving this, and that is honestly something that, I did not look at bringing this down here and creating a 4-way. However, creating a 4-way here, now you're introducing other issues with the Goodwill and with Raymore and Flanagan.
Understood.
So those are things to think about.
Well, again, I'd just like to say, there's probably no perfect answer.
True.
So it's how do you optimize the,
True.
situation?
So if you had just general comment, if you had a clean slate on this pavement area, what would you do to
I
make
thought that
it?
was my pointer. I was like, how is that happening? Because mine's down. I didn't realize you had a pointer too.
All right.
Al's got one too, watch it, we all got like dancing lasers here.
Lisa armed us all.
She said I wouldn't be the only one that had fun with this, so yeah, if you looked at this, would you take parking and go the other way with aisles, or, and I understand cars moving back and forth, but just sort of reimagining that is an option.
True.
Thought about when I made my comments earlier. So there's a lot of open slates. I mean, pavement can be restriped any way you look at it. So,
Or at islands or other things.
yeah, right. I mean, there's no islands out here.
I think in just keeping, like, we're looking at Chick-fil-A, but we have to keep the big picture.
And that's what I'm trying to do, is look at the mall.
Yes.
You know?
And the big picture too being that we have, mall mall traffic coming out too. And I know that I've been here at the mall where this was blocked off for a little while.
There's a four-way here, correct? There's
Yes.
Stop signs in all
It-
four directions?
No, there's only stop signs on the east and west lights.
Oh, coming
not
this
the-
way, going north, because there's a stop sign right here.
There's not a stop sign going this way.
That's not going north.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you had a T intersection or made a four-way down here, seems to me you'd have to have a four-way stop.
You would have to have a four-way stop, and that could also create more of a queuing issue for vehicles coming in.
But on the
Coming,
plus side.
backing out.
Yeah, I see that. So on the plus side, though, you got a longer queue line back to here than you do where it is right there. And it's clear that you don't want a stop sign here for the cars coming in. But moving it further down, does that give you an opportunity? Maybe no.
We'd have to look at the numbers and have to look at the distribution, but I think that this is an underutilized driveway.
Totally agree.
And I think if we can get more traffic to use that, that would be a benefit for not only for the mall, but for Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. It would improve this intersection down here. It would improve traffic coming out of Chick-fil-A and honestly Macy's. If you had people coming out of here and just zip them right out of here, you don't even have to have them do that. There's so many benefits to lining things up with this S right here, even if you had to move it over to this aisle right there. That's not very far. And then looking at the parking in general. I think that there's more creative engineering that can be done to make this site work
From a
well.
From a
Wait.
traffic perspective, it's like a puzzle,
Yeah.
right? So we look at the different site plans, we look at what works for the site, and then we look at the traffic, and then we make our modification, make our recommendations. We really like to stay away from the offset intersections, especially inside of an area like this, just because we don't want people to be confused.
Okay,
So
just-
we want to make it as easy, especially if there's a lot of out-of-town people who may come here. You want to make it easy for them to get in and get out.
Okay, just for your information, I'm a structural engineer, transportation engineer. I used to work with Lorenzo.
Awesome.
He taught me enough to be dangerous, and I totally defer
Yes.
to
And
his
just a
opinions.
correction, according to Wilmart, they want people easy to get in, but they don't want them to get in.
That is true. They want to trap you in there.
Captive audience.
That's what those canoes are for on the exits. You can't find your way out.
Go to
Yeah.
LL Bean for that, so,
Yeah.
okay. Sorry, continue.
Well, I think I presented everything that I
Okay.
wanted to talk about. Did you have any other questions?
I think I've laid out my thoughts pretty well and thoroughly, and I assume that the board members, if they had anything, they would contribute. I mean, Al's been making some comments. Ernie, you've been listening pretty hard.
Okay for tonight.
Okay,
We'll be seeing him again.
yeah. Interested in Lorenzo's perspective on some of these thoughts, so, and the things that you've already presented. So, you got a few minutes, Lorenzo? You want
All
to
right.
jump in?
Well, thank you.
Got to come to the microphone,
Yeah,
though.
right. Name, company, all that stuff.
Lorenzo Rottoli, I'm with Labella Associates, and I'm a traffic engineer. So we reviewed the traffic study, the original one and the addendum, and it follows, it's complete, it follows industry standards. I've known Christine, respected in the traffic world, in our little traffic world. We went through volume diagrams, analysis, input, safety, just like she did. I sympathize because we have thousands of inputs and outputs in these, and once in a while there's a transposition of numbers and such. And most of my comments were that, and I did put the disclaimer on, they were minor, and I know that even if you change that number, it's not going to change the output. So I did put that disclaimer on most of my comments. I think the biggest thing was just there's a couple spots where there's off 96
You
in
got
the
a
first
laser in front of
intersection.
you. If you want to use a laser, there's one in front of you somewhere.
It'd be dangerous, yeah. So from this intersection where they got traffic counts, and then this intersection, they had traffic counts, and there's nothing in between, and I think they took raw volumes, and sometimes counters, whether they be cameras or people counting, some missed cars, and one of the intersections is higher than the other, so is it, the higher one should control, and I think that's what I put in the letter. We don't need a formal redo of the report. All we're looking for is just check a couple of those, give us a printout so I can sign off on it. But there's nothing earth-shattering there. Like I said, everything was done to industry standard. I like the fact that they went from 4 to 3. I like that they had the dual lanes, very long for queuing. Reminds me, I go to the West Coast a lot and just watch the In-N-Out Burgers. They seem to have the same type of operation. It's very efficient, and somehow they process a lot of people. The big concern was in the middle here, everybody trying to make maneuvers in and out. We asked for the traffic model that Christine built, and we watched the simulation, and it was working. I'll say, when you first think of any development that's a successful business like that, you think a lot of traffic coming in, and as Christine pointed out, a lot of it is, I think it was 50% of it is pass-through, so they're already on the road, so you're just pulling some new volumes, but not a ton. I think about 70 new, so, you think about 1 a minute. Maybe they glut up a little closer together, but for the most part, it operated. Again, looking at the simulation, it didn't have concerns. As Christine said, there's a million ways to lay that out and try to work things to optimize it, as Al said. But in general, I think it's workable, given the tweaks they talked about. I don't see any issues. On the 96 corridor, I know the state, they implemented the adaptive signal control, so they're even more efficient than optimized timings. They're dynamic. So I think they get about 10% more capacity on 96. But all in all, I'm not a site guy or a green space guy, so I don't want to comment on any of that. But purely from a traffic standpoint, like I said, a couple outputs, revised outputs, or just clarifications to verify numbers, and we'll see that. And unless there's something earth-shattering that Christine and I didn't anticipate, I think it should be good to go. As I said, the overarching point in my letter is that even though the numbers may be slightly off here and there, I don't think it'll change any of the results, so.
Okay. Any questions for Renzo?
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
And then the seasonal thing, we know what it's like on the holidays. I know the county made that comment, and they go,
Heard
I
your
think I
name
told you.
many times in the course of, this is the first time I've seen you.
Really?
Yes.
Lucky you.
I was glad to be here. But as I said to Joe all the time, we don't build a church for Easter Sunday. I think looking at the average daily use for us in our world, it's 85th percentile, and those are the numbers that were used. People would ask me on other projects, what should we do in front of the mall? I go, well, we can fix that. We could build 8 lanes in each direction, but I don't think that's what you want for the 2 weeks of the year. So let's not overbuild.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Lorenzo.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. I did have one comment about the site plan you proposed, and that's parking within the site along the queue on the there's some parking at the very entrance, and I don't know if we have it.
Yeah, on the, what is the?
If you're turning in
west
to get
side.
in on the west side, there's a string of spots that will be blocked by any cars in the queue that extend back that far.
Yeah, I think our intent with that is to utilize that. We were trying to maximize the available parking, so we would likely use that as team member parking.
Okay. I mean, you also have team member parking, it looks like on the
north,
On the
yep.
north, on the out.
That's correct.
As well. So you have enough team members to fill those 2 spaces, or is it like?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, you said like 175 people or so? would
Yeah,
be
I mean, a
deployed?
shift could be
Yeah.
15, 20 people, something of
Okay.
that range, potentially, depending on the
If they
time
go
of
beyond
day.
that, then they park in the main
That's
parking
correct.
across the ring
Yeah,
road?
they definitely wouldn't be using
Okay.
the core parking that's in the
Listen,
parking
That
lot.
was a question I had, so,
Okay.
that detail. Okay, I think we've hit traffic pretty well. Thanks to both engineers for being here. Anything else, Wes, that I've missed?
No, not yet.
Okay.
We're okay.
You can't read my mind either, so that's the way it is. Okay, unless you guys have any questions for us on our other thoughts, I think
I think we're good.
we've hit it pretty hard tonight.
Okay. I appreciate the board's time. Thank you.
I appreciate you guys willing to work with us, and look forward to hearing what you got at the next time you come before us. So, thanks.
Good night.
Thanks.
I'm not going to be at the next meeting. So, is it, anybody else have an issue with, before we adjourn? Al, you gonna be at the next meeting on the 8th?
I will be.
Okay. I have to listen, take my dad to the hospital, so.
No, we for April 8th. And
Right.
I'll check with Joe
And-
Linda. I think he's back.
Yeah, you should be. Okay. All right. Motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Second.
Aye. Good night, everyone. Thanks for being here.